I had my first child in September of '08. And I remember sitting in the hospital and I'm seeing my wife sleeping and I see my new baby sleeping and I'm feeling the weight of the world on me. And I look up at the TV and it says Lehman Brothers goes under, financial markets in disarray, and like worse since the Depression. And I'm like, what have I just signed up for?
Welcome to Teague Talks. Today we're sitting down with Vamsi Bonthala, CEO of Arbor Lodging. Vamsi, welcome. Thanks for hosting us today.
Thanks for having me.
So I'm excited. We're going to talk about the industry. We're going to talk about the future, but I want to hear your story. And I love your story. I think whereas your story is not unique, I do think it's ironically unique to this industry, right? So I want to know where you came from, where you went to school, how you got in the business, but you're not teeing it up for everybody. You're not this second generation hotelier that grew up in the motel that always knew subconsciously this is what you were going to do.
Yes, that's right.
So what were you going to do as a kid? Running around with fire trucks, what were you going to do?
Well, obviously an NBA player. That's
Yeah,
first and foremost.
Of course.
And so, I grew up in a household where it was kind of expected that I was going to go do something professional, not just college, but do something else. My brother's a lawyer. My sister's a doctor. And so...
What were mom and dad?
My dad was the town doctor. I grew up in a small town of 6,000 people in rural Iowa. And so he did everything from delivering babies and back to school physicals to removing gallbladder stones. Like,
Of course.
yeah, full service.
Yes.
And so, as far as like things that really interested me, I always loved architecture and I loved travel. So I would say I want to be an architect or I wanted to be a pilot. And so I always kind of laugh when I fast forward to my life now that I did kind of end up at a little bit of the intersection of that, which I think is pretty cool.
So where'd you go to college?
So I left home when I was 14. I went to boarding school.
No, that's right.
And so it was just not necessarily a long-term plan or anything like that. But I was kind of hitting the limit of what I thought I could do in this small town. And, to be clear, I loved growing up there. It was like kind of very apple pie, the type of thing that you like write books about, like played till the sun went down. We used to play hide and seek in cornfields and all that kind of stuff. But it was a smaller community, so I kind of had visions of doing more and found out about these schools out east and thought it was kind of cool. And so
Your idea.
It was my idea. Yeah.
Siblings went to local high school.
They went to the local school. Yeah, exactly. So we found out that these even existed a little late for them. And so that's the benefit of being the youngest.
Yeah.
And so by the time that we knew they were out there, I was really intrigued by them. I thought it was pretty cool to like meet people from all over the country, all over the world, all that kind of stuff. And so, but I had never been away for summer camp or sleepaway camp. I traveled, but always with family. So when I left, that was like of a series of things in life that like punch you in the face and wake you up and you kind of like take a different path. That was that was one of the first ones. I definitely remember that. That was crazy hard. Like school used to be easy. I got my butt kicked. It was so really got challenged. But that was like, I got through it. And after that, I felt like I thrived and I just had my high school reunion and old, long friendships, like pretty amazing experience. And then I went to Michigan afterwards for undergrad and law school.
And the high school's probably, Michigan, good call. The high school's probably a self-selected group of highly talented human beings that you're now surrounded by.
Yes.
So you're kind of motivating
100%.
each other.
And I think that's why my parents were certainly excited about that too. And the things that people at 14 and 15 were saying they want to do, it was not anything I'd ever heard before of saying like, I want a PhD in astrophysics and go work at NASA and stuff like that. Like I was surrounded by really great people in Iowa, but this was like a very kind of like different level of people. So, And I truly believe you are the average of the people you hang out with. And so when everybody's talking about what they're going to do in 4 years, 8 years, 20 years from now, you start to think, I need to have a plan and start thinking about maybe the NBA is not going to work out. Maybe I should start thinking about other stuff at this point.
So what did you think you wanted to do then? High school? College, I get it, but what do you think you wanted to do?
Yeah, I wasn't sure because there was a lot of things I didn't know existed at that point. I was probably leaning towards a doctor again. Like my dad was the doctor, and I would be a little disingenuous to say there wasn't a little pressure on me to go that
there
route.
always is.
And so,
Always.
and so I did that like first year of college. I did organic chemistry and all that kind of stuff. And then I was like, what am I doing? Like I do not enjoy this, and I need to man up and have the conversation and say I want to do something else. And I ended up being an economics and political science major, which like I absolutely love that stuff. And that's the nerd part of me that loves to read about it, get deep about policy and ideas and things like that. And so and I was surrounded by people that I kind of felt like got me at that point. I wasn't interested in being a doctor, and that was clear. Whereas like all the people I was talking to now, we're talking about investment banking and consulting and things like that. And so it was pretty cool.
Because that's one of the secrets, right? You got to find something that you're passionate about.
Yes.
So when you're diving in, you're doing it because you want to.
Yeah.
And you keep going, not because someone's making you do it.
100%. I mean, it can't be 100% passion and right. Like, and I think we all recognize that. And that's like the part that I make sure my kids understand, because it's hard to understand nuance when you're young, but like some of it's going to suck and it's going to be boring and it's going to be hard. But at the same time, you get through that because you actually enjoy what you're talking about and learning about. Like even when we hire, I like particularly on the investment side of the team, I say like, I want the person that reads the Wall Street Journal on the weekend, sees an article that's adjacent to hospitality and is like, oh, that affects my business. And like those are the type of people that we want to be working with.
How family deep question. How old are your kids now?
I have 3 boys, so 17, 15, and 11, and 2 are taller than me now, so I'm hanging on. The youngest is still my little guy right now.
He'll still hang out with you.
Yeah.
Do you think being a father and having a family is similar to running a company and managing people? And have they helped you be better at both?
For sure. I mean, I think it's very hard to be compartmentalized on anything in life. Everything has the type of person you are at home is going to be the type of person you're at work, and vice versa. And so the interesting thing is I started a family just as we were starting the business as well. It was like 2 years later.
Oh, sure.
I mean, the quick side story of it is I had my first child in September of '08. And I remember sitting in the hospital and I'm seeing my wife sleeping and I see my new baby sleeping and I'm feeling the weight of the world on me. And I look up at the TV and it says Lehman Brothers goes under, financial markets in disarray, and like worse since the Depression. And I'm like, what have I just signed up for? I quit my job 2 years ago. We really didn't want to wait to do the family. Like that was super important to me. Like we're always like very and not or about our approach. And so we're like, yes, like let's go try this entrepreneurial thing. But yes, let's also start the family because that's super important to us. But it was very overwhelming.
Sometimes
for a
we
little
don't
bit of
plan
time.
for.
Yeah.
I mean, so you started in '06, right?
Started in '06, yeah.
So we do that. So you graduate college and I don't want to get too far ahead. You graduate college and you go to do
so
what?
I was super close to going into investment banking or consulting. And then I was like, again, kind of knew that I was going to do a professional degree at some point. It felt kind of nice to put off the real world. So I went straight to law school. And so graduated, and then I went to New York and I was an attorney there. I did real estate for a very little amount of time, but really I was a private equity attorney doing fund formation, acquisitions, sales, all that kind of stuff. And it was a phenomenal experience. Like I was at a firm that you just learned so much. And when you're on that side of the business, like if you're in the investment world, like you close 3 or 4 deals, like that's a big year. You're really excited about that. But when you're on the service side as an attorney, you're called in late. And so you're doing that 10 times, 12 times, 15 times a year. So much experience seeing people get deals done, close deals. And I was like really lucky to have a a mentor. He was this very rough around the edges Kiwi guy that was just like, we pay you a lot of money. Like you go figure it out. I'm not going to sit here holding your hand about this stuff. And so, very much learned by the fire, like in the fire. It was amazing. And I'm sure some of the clients were like, why is this like junior guy on my very expensive legal bill? But, it was an amazing experience.
Do you have that same style now? You
Uh,
kick people into the and just say, go figure it out? Are you too much of a control freak?
No, I would like to think my team thinks I'm fairly hands off, probably to a little
Both,
too much
yeah.
sometimes, and they probably wouldn't mind me checking in a little bit more. But we all got to figure out how to do this together, and it's so fulfilling when you figure it out on your own. And so,
Well
like,
said.
you don't need me kind of like pointing everything. And most importantly, by doing that, I hope that I'm making very clear that it's okay to fail, because that's the only way we're going to get there. And if I'm holding your hand on everything, I think the implicit message is like it has to be done perfectly, and we're not going to have any room for error here. The big things I got to make sure we don't we don't drive this truck straight off the highway, but
Yes.
but like if you're kind of changing lanes like a little bit here and there, that's okay.
Yeah, little failures that you learn from
Yeah.
can actually be very productive.
100%. I mean, that's the stuff that sticks with you. I think there's like lots of psychological studies, like, like it sticks with you much longer if you messed up something or if you lost something than the wins.
When it went perfectly. And
Yeah, exactly.
Not that we mind going perfect.
Yeah.
All right, so keep going. So you're
So
lawyer in New York
so
doing
a lawyer, and at this point
private
I'm back
equity.
in New York, and so my co-founder Sheenal Patel and I are in the same town again. So we had gone to high school together. Knew each other, but weren't like in each other's like social circles so much. Ended up in college together and became really good friends there. He went on to investment banking in New York. I stayed on for law school, and so I'm working now. He's doing real estate finance. I'm working. Both of us are working crazy hours, and we get together at 11 o'clock at night after work, having a beer, and are like, what are we going to do? Like, how are we going to get out of this? This cannot be our thing forever. And so I think, like a lot of guys, we had a big crew of guys that were always very entrepreneurial, and we tried to like do a business in college and all that stuff. And so it was just fun. I mean, frankly, it was escapism. Like, you're working these insane hours and you need to be picturing something else, especially when you're really young and early in your career and you have no control over anything. You got to feel like you have a control over something. And so if you have a business plan or an idea you're working on, it feels good. It feels empowering. And so, and we just wanted to do something entrepreneurial. Like, I kind of skipped over that part, but like that bug was always with me since I was young. Like, I always wanted to go do something. I mowed lawns when I was little. I did all this stuff. Like, I just love the idea of like convincing somebody to hire you, providing the service, and then getting money for it just was very thrilling. And so we were talking about a lot of stuff. We talked about trying to open a restaurant. We looked at like buying like a little retail strip center. We talked about importing wine from India. We didn't know anything about wine from India, but we thought that could be cool to do. And so we just were having a lot of fun doing that. And so ultimately one thing led to another, and we got in front of a hotel management company. And so Sheenal also doesn't come from the hotel business, but he's a Patel, and so he knows a lot of people in the business. His parents had invested in some hotels, and so we got connected. And it didn't seem overly exotic when there's so many people from the community in the business, even though I didn't grow up in it. We were like, we can figure this out. And it just got fun. Started thinking about acquiring a hotel and thinking about how to put it together and pass the hat around. I had partners at the law firm, clients of mine invest with us, some friends and family invest with us, and we got our first deal done. And then we had that third-party management company managing it. And so we got a second one under contract, and we were like, we're young, neither one of us is married, no kids, like, this is the time, let's give it a try. And so Sheenal quit his job first, and then I quit my job like a month or two later. And that day I quit is the day we kind of consider that Arbor Lodging started, which was 20 years ago today.
Yeah.
And so
Happy anniversary.
Thank you. So it's been a pretty fun ride.
So I love this story. One, happy anniversary. I mean that. Congratulations.
Thank
20
you.
years is saying it. But I love this story. There's so many people out there that are having this exact same
Yeah.
thought and feeling. If not all of us have this thought. Doesn't matter what we're doing. Everyone's like, well, I got to be able to do something. What can I do? What can I do?
Yeah.
And candidly, very few of us actually get there, right? You got to have some luck. You got to have some timing. You got to have some talent.
Yeah.
You got to have a lot of support behind you and around you.
All of those things. Yeah.
So give me, what was the first deal? Where was the first deal? And how did we find
the first deal was actually a piece of land. So we bought a piece of land in Landover, Maryland.
And we're all still employed. We have day
all
jobs.
Still,
we're making a
day
salary.
Jobs. So we're working till like
on
10, 11, and then we start working on this till like 2 a.m. First deal was a piece of land in Landover, Maryland.
Sounds terrible.
And and we thought we were going to build a hotel. And that was our first lesson of how things work in the franchise world. We thought we were going to do it. Then somebody who has built 50 hotels comes and says they want to build one. And so that we just ended up holding for a long time and sold it. So that nothing ever really happened. The first hotel was a hotel in Florida. And then
is this the second deal?
That was, so technically, technically that was the second deal. And then the third deal was these 2 hotels in Park City, Utah, which are when we decided to leave our day jobs and give it a go.
How'd we pick those 2 hotels?
So weirdly enough, it came through the management company because somebody at Hilton said nobody wants to buy these hotels. And now, it's Park City, right? Like, it's kind of crazy. But
you 2 are the dumb guys who were like, we'll take it.
Exactly. I'd never been to Utah in my life. We flew there from New York, toured the hotels, and faxed a signed PSA in later that day, and had no idea how to close it, any of that kind of stuff. We were like, we'll figure it out.
Did you have any equity? Did you have a loan?
No, we didn't have either one of those.
Franchise, right? Okay,
And then one of the investors we thought was going to do it with us did not want to do it because it was $100 a key, and he said that's way too much for a Hampton Inn. And so, we.
Wait,
I don't
is
know why
in 2006? What year
this was in? This was in 06. Yeah, and I don't know why people didn't like that deal. I think they were sort of like, it's a ski market. Why are these
seasonal
hotels were doing okay. They weren't doing amazing, and it was like select service. I think it didn't really fit for somebody, so we took it. And it was actually kind of the first of a thesis we played out at a few different places where it's like, go to a market with high rate, but don't buy the hotel with the highest rate. Buy another hotel where there's no pressure on you, and you can charge $250 a night for a Hampton Inn, and it's still cheaper than the Montage and the St. Regis. And so that was sort of the thesis we played there, and it worked out really well. And we sold it and had a really good exit in 08. And I was like, this business is easy, man. Like, how hard is this? Like, you don't really do anything. It's, the management company's taking care of the day to day. We bought it, we sold it, we made a profit. It seemed fine. And then the fall of 08 hit. Sure. And then like everything just starts falling apart, right? Like I think in September we saw like a 30%, like we had 2 other hotels at that time. We saw like a 30% decrease in RevPAR that September, like another like 20% in October, and it just started to really go sideways. And so it's like the best worst thing that ever happened to us. We had to like learn our business at that point. So we were just kind of coasting at that point, right? We were like operating at this level. And we had to get into the weeds. We had to figure out how to cut costs. You weren't even operating it. You had a third-party management company. You were asset managing. Like, we're doing a lot of stuff. And I guess somewhere in there, trying to find the next deal and fundraising. And learning along the way, trying to figure out how this business works and things like that. And then in, I think it was early 09, we ended up terminating the management company to save money because we were running out of ideas on how to cut costs. And so we terminated the management company and we worked for free. And that's how we learned how to operate hotels. And so we got into the weeds on everything and learned how all this stuff worked, and had made a ton of mistakes and went sideways way more than we went forward. But that's how, we weren't intending to be operators. We came from Wall Street. We thought we were going to be investors. maybe we'd raise a fund. I'd seen like how the fund world work. I wasn't quite sure that I wanted that either, but we knew at some point that was the whole plan. Like neither one of us really knew how to operate something. So that's how we got into that business. And so, that's how we learned it from scratch. It was fun.
Yeah, the necessity is the mother of invention.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Because in my brain, I was like, how did you get into operations?
Yeah, no. So the two of us were like, one of the more fascinating stories is so the following year we started getting into distressed debt and we started buying loans from the FDIC, from servicers. We were like the last pool before that whole maiden lane thing came on board. And we were like back into something we understood and knew, like that we were way more comfortable figuring that out than trying to figure out how to, get the minutes per room down and things like that. And so we ended up buying a loan on a hotel, another one in Park City that we ended up foreclosing on. And we took over the asset. There was a lot of back and forth, took us a while to get to it. And we end up winning we end up going to an open outcry auction in a snowstorm on the courthouse steps in Park City, Utah. We do a credit bid. We get the deed handed to us. Then we walk over to the hotel. There's a guy waiting there and he throws us the keys and he walks out, and that like no passwords, knew nothing about who was working there, knew none of that. So we basically just like camped out at that hotel, interviewed every single person in the hotel, figured out what it is that they do, and kind of built it operationally from scratch. And it was also losing money at that time. And so, and so that's really how I consider that we like really cut our teeth in the business. That was an independent hotel too. So we had no brand standards or anything like that to like lean onto. We had to like basically figure out how to make this thing work.
So that is really from the ground.
That was really from the ground up. Yeah. And it was during Sundance. So we had a full house that we had to take over.
Yeah. Nobody draws this up sitting in Park Avenue, sitting on Wall Street in New York. Yeah. No one says, here's what we're going to do, fellas.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if that was the plan, I wouldn't have done it. So, yeah, it was. But again, that's the stuff that when you look back on was so instrumental in our growth of who we are, in our DNA. Also, like culturally, because there was these really big early hits that happen. And those are the moments where like a partnership is like, are you going to make it, or is it going to get frayed? Or are you going to start pointing fingers and be like, I didn't sign up for this, or like, wait, you should be doing this, and that never happened. Like we just got into the foxhole together and we were like, let's figure this out. And that to me was like, we've had a million of those experiences since then, but that was the early, that was like that early part where you're like, all right, this partnership first and foremost is going to work, because we just went through hell together. And we're still friends and we still want to do this together. And we're like, how are we going to figure this out? And so that to me is more important than any money we made and all that kind of stuff. And so I think that's where like we just got lucky with the DNA culturally of our company really is built on the friendship first and foremost. And then everything else grows out of that.
Yeah, that's really well said and often overlooked.
Yeah.
People don't put enough. So do you think it's because you were friends from a young age, or do you just think it's the reason you came together, or pure luck?
Yeah.
Like, how do you determine that?
I think it's certainly the personalities.
Yep.
A lot of us have lots of friends that we love and we'll throw ourselves in front of a car for, but we might not go into business with. Right. So I think we knew we had the same temperament. The part that I can reflect back on and I know was like super, super important that I didn't know at that time is we didn't really keep score. And so in those early days, when you're a 50-50 partnership, somebody is always going to be doing a little bit more. And when you have a really short perspective, that amount that you're doing more, or that person is doing more, feels huge at that time. And over 20 years, it doesn't feel like a big deal and it evens out. But at that moment, you have to be cool with it. And I don't know how we did it, right? Like in retrospect, like, it takes a certain level of maturity, and I'm not sure I would have said I had that, but there was days where there'd be a period of time Shinal felt like he was adding so much more to the company than I was, and then there'd be a period of time where I felt like I was doing that, but we never were like, hey, let's renegotiate the terms, or we should probably figure this out on a deal by deal basis or anything like that. I think we just had trust that it was going to figure itself out.
That is so powerful what you just said, because it still happens every day in everyone's lives,
Yeah.
whether you're business partners or whether you're just teammates,
Yeah.
right? Or whether, and in our industry now you've got family members,
Yeah.
right? So, and you got the cousin, you got the other cousin, or just again your partner in the business. And some
Yeah.
people think I'm doing so much more than you're doing. Everyone feels that way because we're inherently selfish.
Yeah.
And to your point, which I'm agreeing with, you got to be unselfish. It's okay.
Yeah.
And don't worry about this one micro event.
Exactly. If you're in it for the long term, then
It'll be
don't
all right.
reflect for a while. Like if you're 20 years in and one guy's doing everything, it's a
Different
fair
conversation.
it's fair to have that conversation. But in those early days, you can't get too bogged down about that, because you're going to be a rock star one day and you're going to be like the total hanger on the next day, and it's going to shift back and forth. And that's where like a strong partnership is super important. And so we were really lucky to have that. And I think we just got lucky, and it was the right temperament and it was the right friendship. And yeah, I mean, I think that was like, I'm really happy that worked out that way.
How'd you divvy up responsibilities? Just organically?
So somewhat organically, I'd say like the first 6 or 7 years, we did everything side by like, I'm sure when you do this, sometimes
100%.
you get on a call and you're like, why are these two guys on the call all the time? Like it's always on speaker and there's always two people there. Like, who do I call when I need something? We were those guys. Like we were always in the room together. And I think that's partly why it was easy to keep score, was we weren't like measuring output as much. And maybe because we had we had 1 or 2 quick wins, and then it was a lot of like hard times during the GFC, but we were really measuring effort, and both of us were like all in. I mean, we were working hard, and that's the benefit of being in the office, right? Like we were going in and seeing each other do stuff. I didn't have to speculate, like, is he working at home right now? Or what is he doing? But yeah, we did everything together. And then we started to GFC happens. We really spent 2 years on the credit side, mostly restructuring with borrowers and a lot of owner operator type of assets. And the thesis was, these guys have 90%, 100% of their net worth built into this asset. They're going to figure it out. And even though the math doesn't say that, we believed that they would. And 99% of the time they did. They figured out, they found capital from friends, family, community. They worked it out. And we got paid off on a ton of that.
And
stuff.
your business model is you would buy it cheap enough that if we got paid off, we just want to get paid off.
Yeah. Back in that day, you could do that.
Correct.
Can't do that anymore. Yeah. And so, so we did that. Couple assets we took over, but that wasn't really the main part of the thesis. And then in 2010, we started buying assets again. And you guys actually sold us the first one. It was an REO asset in Birmingham. And so we bought that asset. First, buy the asset, operate it, buy it cheap, and we kind of just grew the business from there. And so started with moving from the syndications to some family, high net worth guys that would just be our backer. And then by 2012, 2013, we started getting into the institutional world, which is where we really saw our growth go. And so right around then, as we're starting to buy more hotels, we started to take different verticals. So at that point, we're getting really busy and we're naturally doing things a little bit more. So I'm much more out there in front of investors. I'm out there finding deals. I'm really focused on growth. And now that we're building, we have to start hiring people. We have to start figuring out how we're going to execute on the promises that we're making. And that so Sheetal started to take the lead on that. And so ultimately one day we just kind of sat down and we're like, why don't you take the lead on that? I feel Sheetal's I'm feeling good on this stuff. I'm going to run with this. And so, kind of fast forward, I lead the investment side of the business and he runs the management side of the business. But we still are very hand in hand on all the major decisions and talking all the time. We've always shared an office. When we built our new office, we were getting busy enough that we couldn't have 2 desks side by side with all the people coming in. So we put a wall, but it's a collapsible glass wall that we can open up if we ever need to just start going into war footing on anything. Yes.
So I love it. And it's just all so organic, right?
All organic.
It's not, there's no, you might have had a blueprint and a plan and then it all falls apart. GFC. So
Yeah.
but everyone's plan falls apart, and it's how do you adapt to it? How do you go?
Yes,
And your
yeah.
capital help me. I'm going to just repeat, dumb it down. You start with just sort of friends and family.
Yep.
And that coworker and that whatever. And like, yeah. And part of there, I'm going to put words in your mouth. They're probably just like, here's a favor.
Oh, 100%.
Here you go.
So this MD at a fund I did a lot of work with, super nice guy. He grew up in Southern Illinois. And so we're both in Manhattan. We kind of like got along being, from farm country and stuff like that. And I told him what I was doing and he was like, oh, that's cool. Like, let me know about it. And he was like encouraging about it. And so I send him our like first offering and he calls me back.
Was it the land or was it the Florida property or Park City?
One of the properties. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I send it to him and he says, he calls back and he goes, I'm in. But he goes, look, I know nothing about hotels and I'm quite certain you know nothing about hotels, but I like you. And that's how it started. And so, but I was in a interview mode. Like I was auditioning from day one with everybody, right? Like he saw me when I joined the law firm and I was doing the simplest tasks of like a closing and making sure that all the signature pages were in the right place, to taking on real responsibility. And that was the bet he was making on. So like you're always being watched and you never know, right? We had another great story along our way of where I got introduced to a guy through a friend who participated in one of our syndications and came in for like a small check, right? Like it was a reasonable check, but nothing major, right? Not millions of dollars or anything like that. And he ends up doing 2 deals with us. He wants to visit one of the properties. I pick him up at the Southwest terminal and he's like, very modest guy, doesn't talk a lot, show him around. So he does a couple deals with us. This FDIC portfolio comes up and it's like the first time we're going to participate in an auction. And it's a decent sized check that has to be done. And you've got to like sign it, deposit 24 hours, close a week later. So I reach out to him as like, just as like a mentor and for advice, because I knew he was in he did apartments and I know he had done some distressed investing. So I'm telling him about this and I'm like, do you think like your investors would want to participate in something like this? And he's like, yeah, I think so. And he's a man of very few words, super smart, kind man, but doesn't talk a lot. And so I keep checking in with him along the way. I'm like, hey, we're going to bid. Like, are you still good? And he's like, yeah. And I go, your investors are going to come along with us, right? And he's like, yeah, no, I think we're good. And so we bid and we win it. So I call him and I'm like, okay, like we've got to close this deal. And I'm still nervous about this because I haven't met any of these guys. Like, I don't know anything. There's no paperwork going back and forth. And he's like, all right, like, he's like, let's move forward. And that's just like how he talks, right? We get to closing day and it's wired out of his personal account.
Of course.
Like he had like this insane ability, never let it on, was just participating in like little nuggets with us along the way, totally understated guy, but was watching us. Like, how do we hold ourselves? And like, it's not like we did everything perfect, but he liked the way that we navigated issues, challenges, things like that. And so I always, like, you never ever know who you're talking to, where it's going to go. And you just got to you got to be performing on your A game at all times.
Because everyone's always watching.
Everyone's always watching. Exactly.
Yeah. And it's always a sales. Even today, you're in front of institutional. I'm jumping ahead. You're in front of institutional that you're still selling.
Yeah.
They're still watching you, judging you.
Yes. Always. Yeah. Always. Yeah. Yeah. I know. I joke with Sheenal because we both have our positives and negatives of the side of the business. And I'm like, yes, dealing on the operation side is hard and there's a lot of work. But at least when you show up to the hotel, like you're kind of the king. Like they know who you are and they treat you well. Like I go into these like boardrooms in like Midtown, and they're like, "Why are you here? You have 5 minutes.
Get out! You're wasting our time."
Yeah.
All right, so keep going. Flash forward, because we how many and Gibby? How many hotels do we have now?
Right now we're just below 40.
Yeah. Great. All right, keep going. So we go from our friends and family. Then we go to high net worth.
Yeah.
I just sort of heard that.
Yeah.
And there were,
then we started doing stuff with private equity.
Yeah.
And I think the key there was we took a deal we already had. So that deal in Park City, which is the one we did with that high net worth guy I just told you about, we created enough value, we could exit, but we were like, we control this deal. We should do something with this. Like there needs to be some strategic value. And everything we always do, just because I'm always thinking like next step, next opportunity is like, okay, does it make money? And what is the strategic value to Arbor for it? Because it sort of has to check both boxes. And so in this case, we were like, let's exit, let's get him a good return, but let's focus on some sort of institutional capital partner, because the first question everybody asks when you go in front of a fund is, what other fund have you done business with? And so I was like, we need to get in the gate. And the only way to get in the gate is if we control the deal and they have to have it. And so we brought in a partner for that. We converted that hotel to a soft branded DoubleTree. That was before soft brands existed, like this hotel. And so that was very helpful for the next one we did. And so from there, we just kept like growing. And so we were doing deals with funds, and the check sizes got bigger and the fund sizes got bigger. And it was always like very step function. I think it's really hard, and you've got to get super lucky to go from syndication to a $100 million equity check. Like you've got to put the time in and just do it deal by deal along the way.
Yeah. And that took you how long?
Yeah, that took about 12, 13 years. Yeah, especially because of the GFC. Like that added another 5 years to everything on top of that. Yeah.
Do you think, I love this question, do you think you could do what you did today?
Yeah,
How much harder do you think
I'd like to say where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah.
But I think you have to acknowledge it's harder. And part of that is the financing side of it. Like my running joke is, there was a great financial crisis because a guy like me got a loan. And so like people who had like out real experience,
right,
no balance sheet, were able to finance deals and get them done. And so I think the barriers to entry are a little bit higher on that. Like they want to see more experience, or you've got to bring on like a high net worth partner who's going to provide the balance sheet, even if it's just for the bad boys and things like that. And so I think things like that are a little harder, and that's a good thing. In big picture, we have a healthier banking system as a result of it, but I do think that it's more challenging on an individual basis as a result.
And what was a $6 million deal is now a $16 or $26 million deal.
It's a capital intensive business. And so the part that I think is why it could work, and which is why we navigated to it, is if you were buying apartments at that time or an like office building, right? Just to me, that sounds like super expensive. It was a lot about cost of capital. Like there wasn't really like a roll your sleeves up component to it. And the reason we liked hotels beyond just the fact that it checked the box on passion, like I love travel and things like that, and geography and all that, is it's an operating business. And so we were coming from the private equity world, and we were seeing sponsors who rolled up their sleeves and got into operations and created value. And even though we were starting with a management company, the concept was the same. We were going to go after a broken business and try to fix it. Where I don't think that necessarily applies to other asset classes in the same way. You don't like necessarily buy a warehouse and think of it as a broken business. You say, let me go find a tenant. Whereas you can go into certain situations and you might be the better operator at that time for a bit. Like some of the stuff we're selling now, we were really great at it 10 years ago. We're not the right operator for it today. And then other guys are coming in and they're able to find opportunity in a different way. And so I think that component still exists. Like if you are someone who is willing to get into operations, and I'm saying that because it took me a while, again, with my private equity background, I didn't navigate to that right away. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to think about putting deals together. But I took too long to figure that out. Like you've got to know operations, and you've got to like really get good at it if you want to be a good investor.
But operations are hard.
Super hard.
Okay. And which is, golly, the joy and sorrow of our hotel world, right? But I think that's why we exist.
Yeah.
Right? When it's easy, everyone can do it, and then it's just your cost of capital, and there's no real differentiator. We need something where sweat equity and talent and work hard matters, and you can actually move the needle if you make some sweat equity, if you make some right moves.
Yeah,
correct?
That was the way we looked at it. We sort of recognized early that it's an expert-driven field.
Yes.
And so we were like, money's all over the place, and it comes and goes, and it's fungible, but expertise takes time. And how do you develop that? And so we were like, let's just be experts, because there was moments where we were like, this is hard. Should we just be doing other stuff? And so, but I think it's paying off, because now like we know our business so well that other people are like, we need you as a part of our team to help us navigate this. And what we also notice is like these big money guys, the big funds, like they'll do some things solo, but I haven't really seen a lot of them do hotels solo. Like
Right.
they tend to do it with an operating partner.
Yeah, they need that operating partner. And you wouldn't be an operator if you weren't forced into it.
Yeah, that's right. But
GFC,
but
taking
it may
a
have
property back.
we may have gotten forced into it one way or another.
Yes,
because I think
eventually.
we've clearly seen the value of a vertically integrated platform. I think having everybody under one roof, learning from each other, and most importantly, having like mutual respect for what each other does is super important to the overall value creation of a hotel. What we often find is like when you're in your corner and the other person's in their corner, you start out antagonistic before trying to say like, how are we going to figure this out together? And so that formula has worked for us.
So help me. So I know we now have institutional partners.
Yeah.
But do we have a fund?
No.
Right.
And so this goes back to my days of fund formation world. And again, one of our first investors, I still remember him saying like, grass is always greener. Like, don't just assume having a fund is going to like make all your problems go away. Because when you have a fund, you're in the fund business. You're not in the real estate business, and you're not in the hotel business. And so we saw that early on, and frankly, it just seemed like a distraction. Like it seemed like we were really hitting our momentum, and there was a really nice decade there of like deals were coming up, and you could find ways to like navigate interesting opportunities. And if I was going to go try to raise a fund, that felt like I was going to take a year off, not doing that and doing other things. And we were very organic about how we grew. Like we did not take outside capital at the platform level. So we weren't in a position of where like one guy could go do this and another guy could do that, because we had a bunch of capital, like working capital that had shown up. We were very careful, and it was like, all right, we close a deal, we're hiring a person. We close a deal, we're hiring a person. And it was always very, very methodical. I think we certainly could have grown faster, but we didn't like the way that would have forced us to grow.
So we do individual deal by individual deal.
Yeah, which most importantly has allowed us to have a lot of autonomy about how we grow our business. And so in the last couple of years, we started a credit business, which somebody may have been like, hold on a second. The fund documents say you invest in this box, and now you're going and doing a credit business. Like, what's that all about? We were able to say like, hey, this is an interesting place we want to be. We've always liked credit from our GFC days. It was and we were like, let's go navigate to that, and let's figure out how we're going to do it. And nobody had to like give us a thumbs up to say we're going to do it.
So talk to me about that. Talk to me about that credit space, the debt space. That it's very interesting, because I agree with you.
Yeah,
it's a fun place. Paper works really well. A lot of people have seen that and therefore have gotten into it.
Yeah.
What makes you different?
So there was an era of our business where we were a lender on more hotels than we were owners. And so, when we were growing during the great financial crisis, I think we ended up having like north of 25 different loans that we had done. And so we liked that business, and we were like, hey, let's figure out a way to get into that business as well. And then interest rates went to like historic lows, and it felt kind of silly not to take advantage of that. So we grew the equity side of the business, and that's where our attention went. And that's how we grew our business, and that's how we grew the talent pool. The good part of that is that's the riskiest part of the capital stack. So if you are good at underwriting equity and figuring that out, you can do all the other stuff. And if you know how to operate hotels, you can do all the other stuff. And so when we started getting into this interest rate environment in the last couple of years, we saw that as our moment to get back to this plan that we always had that took a pause, which was let's figure out how to get back into the credit business. And so we looked at buying debt. The days of buying it at 50 cents on the dollar no longer existed. And so we're like, that doesn't look very fun. And so we started working on a platform to originate debt. So that's pref and mezz and senior. So we've never done a fund, but it's our first programmatic relationship that we ended up doing with a large global credit fund to originate senior loans. And so we've been doing that, and we didn't hire new people for it because we felt very strongly the special sauce was we know how to underwrite hotels, full stop. That's it. Like not this specific part of the hotel capital stack, but how do you think about value? How do you think about risk? And if this team knows how to underwrite equity, they certainly are going to know how to underwrite a different part of the capital stack. And so it's the same team doing all of that. I think if we split it up, we would have been giving away a little bit of what we thought we could be good at about it. And so, and this is meant to be like a real business and not a trade or just a way to get to the keys. I think at the end of the day, we see this as a great balance to the investing side of the business, because what's clear is at different times in the cycle, different things are interesting. And so we've been more active on the credit side, but I'm starting to sense we're going to get more active on the equity side. Because for the first time, like we're actively engaged on like 3 or 4 deals that we're genuinely excited about. And more importantly, equity seems to be picking up the phone and chatting about it. Like as much as I'd like to say, hey, we have conviction, that's all it takes. The whole ecosystem has to be moving in lockstep on this. And just like we have this advantage of like this expert eye in the business, and we would uncover opportunities, say 3 years ago, and equity was like, no way. Like we are not putting risk capital into hotel equity right now. They're now saying like, this looks interesting. And I think, I mean, you certainly see it from where you sit. It does seem that we're getting to a place that deals could start flowing a little bit more.
Yeah, I love this. So let's go there. Let's start talking about the industry and forward looking.
Yeah.
A bunch of things. One, the last 3 years were really tough.
Yeah.
I've been saying we've been sliding since June of 22.
Yep.
Let's call it January of this year, 26. I was like, things are changing.
Yeah.
I can feel it. Things are changing. And let's go. What was interesting, and even on the podcast, sorry, plug, but if you guys go back and look, I think it's fascinating. Jan, Freitag at Star, and everyone on Wall Street was like, it's going to be a flat year, 0,
Yeah.
right?
Including our budget meetings as well. Yeah.
Correct. But my hoteliers that I talked to, Mitch, so we did Jan 1 week, we did Mitch at Vision the next week, and Mitch is like 5% growth.
Sounds like Mitch.
Agreed.
Yeah.
If you know the human,
Yeah.
optimistic.
Yeah.
But right now, Mitch is right. And STR and all the people just upgraded to 3%.
Yeah.
Because the first half of the year has been that good.
Yeah.
Right? I know it's still pocketed, not everybody, but it's been pretty good the first half of the year. First quarter operations were up really good.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, there's been a lot of debt out there.
Mm-hmm.
So the debt has not been a problem for some time.
Yep.
It's not as cheap as everybody wants. It's not going to be a different conversation.
Yeah.
And now the equity is there. We were just at NYU, and just it felt different. For 3 years at NYU, it's been depressing.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yep.
First year, I was like, we're going to get some deals done. I can tell our pipeline is up significantly. Our closings are actually up. Our pipeline is up. I'm like, we're going to get some deals done. It's just starting to feel better.
Yeah.
It's still hard. Hotels are still hard. We still joke in-house. Hotels are hard.
Yeah.
But it's just feeling better. I'm a sense you're seeing the same thing.
And it's not anything that just flipped. I think we've just been in this like
correct.
slow convergence
Correct.
mode, because all of it has to align. The debt needs to be liquid and priced appropriately. The sellers need to be pricing appropriately. And you need, and growth needs to be there. And I will be one of those guys. Like, I didn't think growth was going to be there in 26. I was a little nervous about what we were seeing. I will take this all day long. This has been amazing. I think the question is like sustainability, all that type of stuff. But look, I always, it's a lot easier to look smart being a pessimist. And so I can point out all the things that are going to go wrong. I think there's a lot of reasons to start getting more excited, but most importantly, because you have to start on the right foot. And there was some requirements on deals a few years ago, which was you're going to grow your way into this deal making sense. It's going to have negative leverage, or it's going to be a super low cap rate, but you're buying it cheap and it feels good. If you're behind 1 year, you're behind 2 years, that's so hard to make up after that. You
Yes.
need like hyper growth after that.
Yes.
Whereas if you can get into a deal that is cash flow positive on day one, it just puts you in a much better place. And it's like a lot less pressure on the team too, to execute. So that feels like that's happening right now.
No one ever wants to sell at a 9 cap, right?
Yeah.
Or above. Everyone wants to sell at a 6 cap. But no one wants to buy at a 6 cap. So it's been tough. How do you get a deal done?
Yeah.
Right? How do you get a deal done? And that's historical. That's whatever. There's really no difference. The issue, what I've seen is we have a tough time selling when the world is declining. So
Yeah.
that's been the last 3+ years. we can sell when the world's improving. When you're underwriting, well, I'll buy it at a 7 cap because
Yeah.
I'm going to grow it into a 10.
Yeah.
And that's a world I can live with.
Yeah. It's still humans making the decision.
Exactly.
And so there is an emotion.
And if
That
you
is
can,
the hardest part of the business is to look beyond the emotion.
exactly right. And candidly, though, the people that bought 2 years ago were wrong. So they've been having to wait 2 years, which to your point throws off your metrics.
Yeah.
But now it just feels like now's the right time.
And honestly, I think that's an important point you brought up because I think it put a little bit of a chill. If you go back to the people's previous experience, if they've been around long enough, you were rewarded for being a fast mover post GFC.
Yes.
Like some of our big wins
Yes.
were us wading into that risk waters and buying things that were cheap, but people were like, it's cheap for a reason. These aren't good assets, and they worked out. What happened post COVID was like some people actually got really burned for being early movers in like a market like a San Francisco or something like that. And that whole herd behavior of like, well, let's just like run at it. It's going to figure itself out. Now you're like, well, maybe it's not going to figure itself out for a while. That slowed things down for sure.
Because you're afraid. Once it runs, it seems to run.
Yeah.
It takes off. And there's a few of those markets.
Yeah. And, speaking of the Bay Area, that was our last market, and it has been on fire this year. It's finally showing like real life, but it took 6 years, which is crazy to say.
But some people in there were like, no, Bay Area's done. It's never coming back.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Which is what you need. You need at that point, then you're like, okay, now we're in.
Right. Yeah.
Which is still tough to be a contrarian, even though everyone says, oh, it's easy to just be a contrarian. No, it's hard because when it's negative, it's negative.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
it's
it's funny. There's deals that we've closed and people congratulate me and are like, great buy. That looks awesome. And that one went okay. And there's been a couple of deals where the phone did not ring. Like nobody said anything. And then like, I'll run into a friend and they're like, oh, that was kind of expensive. Or like, you guys paid a lot for that. And those turned out really great, right? Like it goes back to your earlier commentary about pivoting and knowing how to navigate things. That it's an impossible thing to predict what's going to happen. And so you're going to get lucky sometimes, you're going to get unlucky sometimes, and you just have to make the best of that situation.
All right. So I love this. So now I was going to ask about markets, but this is my pivot. You've pivoted on two operations. You've pivoted to debt.
Yeah.
Now on markets, you're pivoting to Mexico.
Yeah.
Talk to me about Mexico City. What, where, why?
Yeah. So another organic thing is as I tell the story, but this is just another example of what I think really why I am passionate about what we do. And I love Arbor is we are still entrepreneurs to this day. Like we have tested and tried things. Some things don't work, some things work. And the idea here was coming out of COVID, it was a really challenging labor market. And so we were starting to think about, are we going to have to go start another office or something like that? And we started with a really wide net. We looked at offices in the Sun Belt because that was kind of the hot thing back then. We looked at like opportunities on the other side of the world of like certain departments in like India or the Philippines, and that did not work for us because we're culture guys and we want to know who we're working with. And we got led down to Mexico City. We knew a couple of people, particularly in tech, that had offices down there with like developers and things like that, and we're having a good experience. And we knew it's the largest city in the Western Hemisphere. It has a huge talent pool. And kind of randomly enough, I spent a semester abroad in high school. So half my senior year living with the family outside of Mexico City. And went to school in Spanish, local school, all that kind of stuff. The Spanish is not as good as it used to be. It requires a couple tequilas, but I was fluent back then. And so it kind of like going into the hotels, it didn't seem exotic. Like I'd been there before. We had spent time there before. We knew people that were there. And so we decided like, let's go check it out, start doing some work down there. And we hire one person in accounting and we're like, let's see how it goes. And fast forward 4 years, we've got just under 20 people, or might be at 20 people now. Accounting, HR, sales, operations, revenue management, like everything down there, working hand in hand with our US team. And so supporting US operations. We're like coming up to Chicago for Cubs games. Like we're going down there, and it's worked great because same time zone as Chicago half the year, closer to half of our properties than we are. Culturally very aligned. Like they get our US slang and things like that, and they like football and stuff like that. And so there's a lot of reasons just it's gotten along really well. Also, I think it might be the friendliest country on the face of the planet. And so like just has worked out really well. It's been like a huge spark to our business of like kind of this new like office and new folks that have come on board. So that part is working fine. And we're like, this is like a super talented team. And we have all the verticals covered. Like we have a management company here. It's not just an Arbor office. Like we have a full-fledged management company in Latin America. So we started having conversations with people in the market, learning about the opportunity. It's growing like crazy. Institutional management is still not like anywhere like it is in the US, where it's like guerrilla warfare trying to win a third-party management deal. And there, like, there aren't a lot of people like us, especially with boots on the ground. I think there might only be one other company. And the brands were so supportive. Like really, they've known us for now at that point, 16 years in the US. We were on third-party approved operator lists. We had won awards, things like that. So the brands were like super, super supportive of us growing there. So we're like, let's do it. Let's go make a run at this. And so I started doing business development from Chicago.
Love it.
Making my way into like family offices and meetings in Mexico City and Cabo and Cancun and stuff like that. And it was invigorating, right? Like you and I have talked, like you love that stuff too, right?
Yes.
Like I loved, it felt like the early days, like going into these offices and people are like, you have 5 minutes. Like, why are you here? And so that really started to build some nice momentum. And then we just brought on about 6 months ago, like a really seasoned guy on the business development side. And the pipeline has been growing a lot. So on the third party management side, that's the focus. We might be investors at some point down in the region, but right now it's sort of like a walk before you run. And we're focusing on the management side of the business.
No, I want you to talk about running because that's more exciting. Because I know you have opportunities. So what has it opened up from an investment side? Yes, operations, and maybe it's just third-party management, but what else has it opened up?
So we are focusing on assets that are very different than we do in the US. Like we're focused on resort markets, luxury hotels. We've been doing lifestyle boutique here, but that's been a much bigger focus. Some of that is just who we are as a company right now. I think before COVID, the business model on select service worked really well for us based on who we were, our size, as well as, controls on costs and cheap debt. And now you're getting into a much more operationally intensive part of the cycle. And you want, frankly, operationally intensive businesses where you can really show what you're about. And so the one acquisition we did recently is we bought a golf resort up in Chicago. So 18-hole golf course, 39,000 square feet of meeting space, spa, multiple food and beverage outlets, has a bowling alley, because we're like, these are all these levers we can pull. It's not just about put cheap debt on it and figure it out. And so that is translating down to that region as well. But definitely way more resort down there, like beachfront type of stuff. And that's been really fun. The site visits are super, super fun.
Right.
I was just in Costa Rica last week. I was in Mexico the week before that. We just got awarded a project in Cabo. And so this has been really fun. And definitely, like you said, I can't help myself. We're trying to figure out how to invest down there as well. What we built our business on, particularly with institutional capital, is not necessarily going to be the right fit down there just because their funds aren't going to let them invest there. But what's nice is we're spending a lot more time with families that are really long-term in their ownership. And in many ways has a lot of alignment with the way we're not a family business, but sometimes I feel like it feels like that just with the relationship that Chino and I have. And I think they see a lot of similarities in that. And so there's been some good ways to connect on that point versus coming in and saying we're super institutional. They know that we can add that, but they want to know, will you come to my house for dinner? Because that also is important to me.
Yeah, the human connection, why we do all this. I love it. And to your earlier point, nothing happens overnight, right? It looks like an overnight success, but you've already been in Mexico 4 years.
4 years, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But I think again, timing and whether you were brilliant or you're just going to be at the right place. Because right now, luxury and resorts and travels where everyone wants to be.
Yeah.
So you're sort of organically growing into it again.
Yes.
That if we can end up in these places and these resorts.
100%. I think that's like you get the good thing about being in business for 20 years is you have experience and all that stuff. The bad thing is that people paint you into a box.
Right.
Like if it's fair or not fair. Like we've been doing like food and beverage and lifestyle and boutique for 10, 11 years. But a lot of times, sometimes people just think that we're focused on select service. So I think being there and building up the bona fides on luxury and resort and stuff like that has been really great for our business and team members too, because the background the team there has from all inclusive and Caribbean luxury resorts and things like that, we wouldn't necessarily hire that role in the US, or maybe now, but we wouldn't have 4 years ago. Like that wasn't the right fit for us, but there it made sense to do that. And now we have that expertise in house, which has been really great.
So I love this. Did you think you could make money in the management?
No.
Right.
We did that. Like that has been like a super fun and interesting side of the business because we have had inbounds about people wanting to invest into the management business. And I would have never thought that. In fact, I remember in the early days as we were working so hard to build out the team and the policies and procedures and all this stuff. And I remember saying like, we are working so hard for this and it only has value to us. Nobody else cares about this. And like when we ultimately sell off the portfolio one day, it goes away. And then all of a sudden, a few years ago, people are like knocking on the door asking about our platform. And I'm like, what happened? So, but that's like, I see why that's happening. I'm just happy that people are recognizing that, like building a real operating business that over time generates cash flow year after year, retains talent, can find talent, can grow into multiple, not just multiple states, but into multiple countries. That's hard to do overnight. And I think this is the part I was very naive about. It is way more expensive to build it if you're going to build it right. We did it in this long, trek of a way. And we were able to do it without having to get that huge check, but way longer and way more painful than it needed to be. We got to where we wanted to, but there was a period of time where it felt like we were reinventing ourselves like regularly.
I love it and can relate. Again, that's how I feel about the conference.
Yeah,
that's how I feel about even the brokerage at times.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
that's how I feel about this podcast.
Yeah,
like you're just doing it what I think is organically for the right reasons, and for us a little bit like hey, this is just the right thing to do. Yeah. And then you look up one day and you're like, huh.
Yeah. But I see a lot of similarities in that. Like you're building businesses that are adjacent to your core business. Right. Like you're not just suddenly saying like, hey, we're going to go start to do multifamily brokerage or something like that.
Right.
And you're doing it because it's fun to grow businesses.
Although you'd laugh. I get approached all the time. Like, hey, come, let's do multifamily.
Yeah.
Hey, come, let's do debt. Hey, come, let's do whatever. There's all kinds of stuff. And you got to figure out, again, at the end of the day, it takes the right person to run it. Like you got to partner with that person and it's not the opportunity, it's the human being. So back to that piece, which is vitally important. And then you're working on, are you distracted? Are there conflicts of interest? Are there other? But there's lots. We could have gone in so many different directions up to now. Maybe I made mistakes not doing it, but it's fun. It's fun options.
Yeah, that's true. It's nice to be there.
All right, we're wrapping up. So tell me where we sit. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for sitting down.
This is fun. Thank you.
So tell me, where are we today? Where are we sitting down today? And what are we about to do in a minute?
So we are in Hotel Phillips in downtown Kansas City. It is a super instrumental deal in our life cycle. We were just talking about, convincing people and moving to different stuff. And so we were exclusively like hard brand and mostly select service. And a broker, like I ran into him at a conference. So there's a plug for why you go to the conference, even though sometimes you're like, why am I going to this thing again? Ran into him in the hallway. And he knew I was from Iowa. And so he was like, "Do you know Kansas City?" And I was like, "Yeah, I grew up going there. Like, World's Fun and Oceans of Fun is the amusement park down here and stuff like that." And he's like, "I've got a hotel down there. Would you have interest?" And he starts describing it. And I'm like, "Yes, like we will do this deal," because no one was calling us about that
Yeah,
kind of
right.
stuff. So came down here, toured it, and it was an independent hotel. The previous owner had done a nice renovation, but it was a little long in the tooth, and it like what design and independent had evolved a ton in a very short period of time. So started to see the vision of what we could do, and then Soft Brand had just been launched. I think we were the fifth curio, if I remember correctly, and we thought like, hey, this hotel is going to do great on weekends, but now we have this really elegant solution for midweek without losing it being a lifestyle boutique hotel. And so we ended up acquiring it, did a huge renovation, probably would be like 50 million today, just with the inflation that's happened. State tax credits, federal tax credits. But it was a super instrumental deal in I feel like it took us to another level of working on a complicated deal, both on the origination and closing side, but complicated in its operations, complicated in its design. It showed people that we could be more than just, select service guys. And so this property means a lot to me.
Which is why we're here,
Yeah.
by the way. And we probably both wanted to go to Mexico.
Yeah.
We pivoted to Kansas.
We'll come down in a couple of years to Mexico.
You know what? When you get your first one, you'll get a resort in Cabo. We'll go to that one.
Perfect. Yeah.
But I'm excited to go walk this and have you show up. But I know how important this specific hotel is to you.
Absolutely.
It's super cool, all that kind of stuff. We're going to hear about it in a minute, but I just know how important it is to you. So
yeah,
I'm glad we're here. Could sit down and do this.
Thanks for visiting us. This is great.
All right, give me your crystal ball for the industry or closing thoughts.
I think the commentary is it's a hard business, but it's a business that on the macro scale has purpose and is growing. Like people are having discretionary capital. People now want to spend money on travel. Like if you look at all the global trends, travel experience has been the thing for a decade and its own, like people are leaning in. And now you've got like baby boomers who have like all this time and all this money and they don't want to just go buy another boat or, go get another TV. They're like, let's go see this place that I was working way too hard in my life to ever be able to go see. And now I want to go see it. And so those are really great top line trends. I think the hotel operating business has some things that are going to require some reinvention, including even with the brands. I think the relationship with the brands cannot work the same way it did a decade ago. And I think I just saw something in the journal today. There was a pretty hefty letter that was sent on behalf of a bunch of owners, but that needs to get like course corrected to being like a mutually beneficial experience. And where I'm seeing it in real time when you go to other countries right now where it's not as saturated as the US has become. And you see like what the brand value is and like why people do it and why an owner would want to be affiliated with it. I think in the US, there's stuff that's going to need to get figured out there. And then I think operationally, this is going to be like a super interesting thing to navigate between AI and robotics and the personal touch on humans, because it is going to be tough to operate hotels with no changes, but you also need to remember that it's a people intensive business. And how do you maintain it that way? And how do you keep it that way? So the part we didn't get to is that we also are investing in a lot of venture stuff too, particularly around hospitality. And so AI businesses, how like cheaper toilet paper businesses, vacuum cleaners, heated outdoor furniture, lots of things like that. That one, because we know the business, we think it's interesting to invest in it. But secondly, maybe it's a way to find the special sauce on how to operate this stuff a little bit more efficiently as well.
Because it has to come, right?
It has to come.
I mean, again, back to the organic nature of how it flows.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of tools out there. We're spending time. Our most recent acquisition was an independent hotel. So there's also interesting ways to do it independent versus branded. But even within branded, I think we've got to figure out one, how to do renovations that are needed, but that are also cost effective. And then we also need to figure out operationally, how do we still provide service and take care of our guests? There's been a lot of things in the last decade that people tried to do of like, AI driven revenue management platforms that will skip the all these things, like that stuff. I don't think you can do huge leapfrogs overnight. I think you've got to know the business and you've got to like tinker at it. Like our view is where we are creating value right now is we're getting like 1% in 10 different things. There's not like a single line item that we're cutting 10% on. I think that if you've been doing your job for the last few years, that's like it's almost impossible to do that.
Yeah.
At least on an existing asset. Hopefully, like when we come after other people, we can do that. But
Which is, again, why you have a job, why you love the hotel space.
Yeah.
Because you can do things
yeah,
and make a difference.
yeah,
It's not just blindly investing $1 and watching it grow.
yes, that's right.
The downside of that is you also have to do it.
Yeah, that's
So-
right. That's right.
Vamsi, this is great. Thank you. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
being here.
Appreciate
Thank you
it.
for
It was
doing
a lot of
this.
fun.
Let's go tour a hotel.
Sounds good. Let's do it.